Hello and welcome to another video of A-Level Biology. In this video, we'll be exploring three subtopics from Section 1 Biological Molecules of AQA A-Level Biology. We will be exploring three major polysaccharides, which are starch, glycogen and cellulose. Let's now look at each of them in detail. Firstly, let's start off with starch. Starch is found only in plants and never in animals. It's found usually in seeds and grains as well as in storage organs like potato tubers. You may have heard that potatoes are high in starch, so now you know that it's due to potato tubers. It's obviously a polysaccharide, which is a polymer as stated at the top, so it must be consisting of glucose monomers. But remember, all polysaccharides are made up from glucose monomers, but the important detail is that it's made up of specifically alpha-glucose monomers. It is specifically this glucose isomer that is ultimately responsible for its structural properties and adaptations. Let's now look at the main roles of starch, which is energy storage. Its structure is well suited for this purpose, which we'll look at now. It's insoluble in water, so water potential is not affected. What is water potential? Water potential is the tendency of water to move from one area to another, in this case via osmosis. If something is insoluble, then its concentration never affects osmosis, so water content or water balance remains the same and unaffected by the presence of starch. Following on from this point, insoluble and large, i.e. a polymer, so it doesn't diffuse out of cells. In other words, it doesn't cause any diffusion or osmosis within the cells. Starch has two main forms, branched and unbranched. Unbranched form wounds into a tight coil in the shape of a helix that makes the molecule very compact. This means a lot of starch can be stored in a small space. Starch can easily be hydrolyzed by breaking those glycosidic bonds that holds the polysaccharide. This means that alpha-glucose monomers are released, which are easily transported and then readily used in respiration to release energy. Let's now look at the branched form, which have many ends where enzymes can act on simultaneously to release glucose monomers rapidly. Here in these images, you can see some starch-rich foods, and it is a major energy source in most diets. Let's now have a look at our second polysaccharide on the list, which is glycogen. Unlike starch, glycogen is only found in animals and never in plants. It's however similar to starch in some aspects, which you will see. As well as animals, it is also found in bacteria. It's highly branched, more branched than starch, and has shorter chains. Its main purpose is also to be a good form of energy storage. Like starch, it's made up of alpha-glucose monomers. Fat is the main form of storage in animals, but in terms of carbohydrates, glycogen is the major storage product. It's mostly found in the form of small granules in liver as well as muscle cells. It's also insoluble, so water potential is not affected, therefore water isn't drawn into the cells due to osmosis. It's also a polymer, so therefore large, and as well as being insoluble, it doesn't diffuse out of cells. It's also compact, so a lot of it can be stored in a small space. And also being highly branched, it allows enzymes to act on simultaneously to release alpha-glucose monomers rapidly, which is particularly advantageous for animals with high metabolic rate as they have to carry less mass. Now let's look at our last polysaccharide on the list, which is cellulose. Cellulose is found only in plants and more specifically in plant cell walls. It's structurally very different from starch and glycogen. The main difference is that it is made up of beta-glucose monomers instead of alpha-glucose, which is the fundamental basic difference. Its main purpose is to provide rigidity to plant cells. This ability of providing rigidity allows it to prevent cells from bursting by exerting an inwards pressure, which stops further influx of water. This makes some parts of plants semi-rigid. This is because cellulose only forms long, straight, unbranched chains which run parallel to each other. As you know that beta-glucose have several hydrogens in the form of OH groups, which in presence of an adjacent chain forms a hydrogen bond cross linkages between these adjacent chains. The overall number of hydrogen bonds makes a considerable contribution to strengthening it. If you are confused about OH group in alpha glucose monomers, then I highly recommend watching my video on carbohydrates, where I explain its structure. And if you are unsure about hydrogen bonding, then watch my very first video on bonding. Link to both of these in the description. Anyways, coming back to the topic. These molecules are then grouped to form microfibrils, which then wrap around each other to form fibrils, and then forming fibers, which all contributes to strengthening this valuable material. This structure is quite similar to the structures of rope. That's it for this video. Do not forget to share this video, leave a like if you found this video helpful, subscribe, and do let me know of your feedback in the comments down below.